The first anomaly arrived without warning. At the outer edge of the Veltharan trade corridor, a place so dull that most patrol rotations treated it as a punishment assignment, a silent object slipped out of fold space. Commander Jarek of the Thalir Dominion Navy noticed it only because the automated sensor rays hesitated for half a second, alpha second. In a corridor mapped to the quantum grain. Explain the delay, Jarek said calmly from the command cradle of the cruiser Radiant Mandate. The sensor technician flicked his frilled neck plates nervously. There was interference, Commander. From what? The answer came slowly. From something that wasn't there a moment ago. A shape resolved on the central tactical display. Long, angular, unmistakably artificial, but it carried no Dominion transponder, no merchant registry, no diplomatic signature from any known polity of the Galactic Concordium. Jarek leaned forward. The ship was primitive, at least at first glance. A dull gray hull, scarred with external plating instead of the elegant graviotique shells used by modern starcraft. Visible antennae arrays. Even what looked like exposed radiator fins. Someone on the bridge made a quiet chitter of amusement. Pre-war architecture, another officer said. Centuries outdated. Yet something about it bothered Jarek. The vessel had appeared inside a secured corridor without using a registered fold beacon. That should have been impossible. Scan for origin signatures, he ordered. The sensors pulsed outward. The results were strange. No advanced face shielding, no cloaking grid. Power output barely equal to a mid-tier cargo transport. Weapon emissions minimal. The cruiser's intelligence officer let out a dismissive click. A relic ship. Commander, possibly a drifting artifact. But then the translation algorithms chimed. A transmission. Simple, clear, and broadcast in basic Concordium trade code. Unknown vessel, you have entered a restricted navigation corridor of the Thalir Dominion. Identify yourself. The response came instantly. Not encrypted, not delayed. Just .com. This is the United Earth vessel Resolute Horizon. We request passage. The bridge fell silent. Earth. A few officers exchanged puzzled glances. Jarek searched his memory. Earth. Yes. One of the minor developing civilizations catalogued near the Orion Spur. Classified centuries ago by surveyors. Low technology. Limited interstellar presence. They had barely managed sublight colonization. Someone chuckled softly. Primitive species, the intelligence officer muttered. They were still experimenting with nuclear fission. When the Concordium was founded, Jarek's eyes narrowed. How did primitives enter a restricted fold corridor? No one answered. He opened a channel. This is Commander Jarek of the Thalir Dominion Cruiser Radiant Mandate. Your presence here violates interstellar traffic regulations. You will power down and submit to inspection. A pause. Then the human voice replied again. Inspection is unnecessary. Calm, respectful, but firm. We are merely passing through. Several bridge officers bristled. That's not how Dominion space works, the communications officer snapped. Jarek kept his tone measured. You are trespassing in a strategic corridor. You will comply. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the human responded. Commander, we strongly recommend you allow us to continue our journey. The phrasing made something cold move through Jarek's spine. Recommend. Not request. Not plead. Recommend. Before he could respond, a new signal appeared. Then another, and another. The tactical display expanded rapidly. Fold space ruptures bloomed across the corridor like lightning tearing through black silk. Ships poured out. 20. 40. 60. The Veltharan patrol fleet had arrived. A full Dominion enforcement group responding to the anomaly alert. Heavy cruisers. Carrier platforms. Escort destroyers. A wall of modern warships surrounded the lonely gray vessel. The bridge filled with relieved murmurs. Well, someone laughed quietly. That settles it. Even Jarek relaxed slightly. No primitive craft could challenge a Dominion fleet. The patrol admiral appeared on the holoscreen. Admiral Kelvath. Ancient, decorated, and visibly irritated. "Commander Zahiki," the admiral said sharply. "Report. Unknown vessel identifying as human. Admiral. Claiming passage." Kelvath looked at the tactical display, then laughed. "A human relic ship." "Yes, Admiral." The admiral waved a dismissive claw. "Disable it and tow it for study. Their species might have stumbled onto something interesting." Zurich hesitated. "Admiral." The vessel appeared without beacon guidance. Kelvath's amusement faded slightly, but only slightly. Even primitives can stumble onto unusual navigation methods. He leaned closer to the screen. "Open a fleet-wide channel." Moments later, the admiral's voice echoed across space. "This is Admiral Kelvath of the Thalir Dominion fleet. Unknown vessel Resolute Horizon. You are surrounded by 62 warships. Power down immediately." The human reply came instantly. "Admiral, we repeat our request for passage." Kelvath scoffed. "You misunderstand your situation." Silence. Then the human voice returned. Still calm. Still polite. "No, Admiral. You misunderstand yours." The bridge erupted with laughter. Even Jarek allowed himself a small flicker of amusement. A lone human ship threatening a Dominion fleet. Absurd. Kelvath gave the order. Disabled their engines. 3 destroyers moved forward, their gravitic lances charged. Bright blue arcs gathered along the weapon spines. Jarek watched the human vessel carefully. No shields activated. No evasive maneuvers. It simply remained there, still. Silent. The destroyers fired. 3 lances of compressed gravity screamed across space and vanished. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Just gone. The destroyer captains hesitated. "Sensor malfunction?" one asked. Sharik frowned. "Negative. Reacquire targeting." Before the destroyers could fire again, the human ship moved. Not fast. It simply shifted position. A small adjustment. Barely noticeable, but the senses screamed. The power output of the Resolute Horizon surged, not gradually. Instantly. From cargo ship levels to something that made the sensor arrays overload. Jarik's breath caught. That reading can't be real. But the data stabilized, and every officer on the bridge went silent. The human vessel was now radiating energy equal to a stellar ignition array. Kelvath's voice returned, suddenly sharp. "What weapon system is that?" No one answered, because at that exact moment, the human ship spoke again, but this time, the transmission went to every ship in the fleet simultaneously. "Dominion vessels. This is Captain Elias Ward of the United Earth vessel, Resolute Horizon." The voice carried no arrogance, no anger. Only something heavier. "Regret. You have mistaken restraint for weakness." Across 62 warships, weapon systems began charging. Kelvath snarled. "All ships fire!" The fleet unleashed everything. Missile swarms, particle beams, graviton lances, enough firepower to crack a planet. The storm of destruction rushed toward the lone human ship, and then space itself folded inward around the Resolute Horizon. Not like a shield, not like a warp field, more like the universe had briefly decided that the human ship existed somewhere else. The entire barrage passed through empty vacuum, Sharik whispered in disbelief. "That's impossible." Then the human captain spoke one final time. "Admiral Kelvath, you should have let us pass." And in the next second, the first Dominion cruiser disappeared. Not destroyed. Not exploded. Just gone. The tactical display flickered. Another cruiser vanished. Then another. And another. The fleet began to panic. What weapon is that? No energy signature. "No impact!" Jaruk stared at the impossible data as ship after ship vanished from existence, and then the realization hit him like a collision. The human ship wasn't destroying the fleet. It was removing them from reality itself, and the Resolute Horizon hadn't even deployed its main weapons yet. The Dominion fleet had just realized they were not facing a primitive civilization. They were facing something far older than anyone had ever imagined, and the human captain's next command would prove it. No doctrine in the Thalir Dominion had prepared them for absence. They knew how to read the blossom of antimatter destruction, the ripple of shield collapse, the thermal ghosts of debris fields. They knew how to measure defeat, because defeat always left evidence. Wreckage. Radiation. Corpses in frozen compartments of battlefield could be studied, filed, avenged, but the ships vanishing around the Resolute Horizon left nothing. No heat bloom, no mass scatter, no distress. Echoes, beyond the first broken shrieks. Commander Jaruk watched tactical icons wink out, one after another, and for the first time in his decorated career, he did not understand what he was seeing. The bridge of the Radiant Mandate had gone utterly still except for alarm tones and the ragged breathing clicks of his crew. Range check, he snapped. Unchanged. Residual distortion? None. Track the missing holes. The sensor master's hands trembled over the interface. There is nothing to track, Commander. Their world lines terminate. Terminate. Not destroyed. Ended. On the main hololith, the lone human warship remained at the center of the engagement sphere, like a shard of night hammered into shape. Its radiators still glowed a dull ember. Its hulls still looked archaic, almost industrial, as if it belonged in a museum of early expansion fleets. Yet, around it, modern Dominion warships disappeared as neatly as ink wiped from glass. Across the fleet channel, panic spread faster than discipline. Carrier Halcyon, spear requesting vector retreat. Destroyer Wing Beta has lost navigation weapons failing to lock. It keeps slip in phase. Reference. Then, Admiral Kelvath's voice thundered across the network, furious and incredulous. Hold formation. No vessel breaks the line. This is a perception assault maintain cohesion. He was speaking as an officer of the old school, and Jarek knew why. The Dominion's power rested not merely on military force but on certainty. Certainty that hierarchy held. Certainty that advanced civilizations occupied a natural order and lesser species remained beneath them. Certainty that the galaxy, however vast, had already revealed its major secrets to the species worthy of empire. Humans had never ranked among those species. In every Dominion archive, Earth appeared as a footnote, a difficult biosphere. High gravity. Oxygen-rich corrosion, a species of Tulucian omnivores that evolved through brutal scarcity and tribal conflict. They had shown ingenuity, yes, but so had many emergent peoples. The Concordium's first contact report had described them in terms bordering on pity, emotionally volatile, politically fragmented, mathematically promising, technologically decades behind relevance. More importantly, they had stayed small. While the Galactic Concordium bound 7 major civilizations into a web of law, tariffs, and regulated war, humanity never petitioned for full membership. While the Cerevian Continuum built its perfect algorithmic trade lattice across 11 sectors, humans remained clustered in a handful of frontier systems near the Orion Spur. While the vast hegemony swallowed neighbors under the language of civilizational uplift, Earth sent only a few diplomats, a few freight contracts, a few strange academic papers on gravitech harmonics that no one important read. Insignificant peoples survived by attaching themselves to stronger powers. That had been the theory. The reality, Jarek was beginning to suspect, was much worse. He opened an encrypted priority channel to Dominion Strategic Command, even as battle raged around him. This is Commander Zarre. Vessel Radian Mandate. Feltaran Corridor. We are engaged with a human ship designated Resolute Horizon. I repeat, human. Unknown weapon system capable of non-destructive erasure or displacement of capital holes. Request immediate archive release on all human military intelligence. There was a pause before the reply came from a distant bureaucratic node. Stand by. That answer, more than the battle itself, chilled him. Standby meant someone was searching old vaults, not current files. Old vaults. On the far side of the corridor, another Dominion cruiser vanished, and suddenly the human ship ceased fire. The silence that followed was somehow more terrible than the attack. Kelveth seized the moment. All surviving vessels form encirclement launch drones. I want hard telemetry, not superstition. The Admiral's flagship began redeploying, and discipline clawed its way back into the fleet. Squadrons pivoted into a layered sphere around the human vessel. Careful now, farther out, hundreds of autonomous sensor needles darting ahead like glittering insects. Zhurk studied the human ship's profile. No visible weapon apertures had opened, no launch bays, no rotating spinal cannon. The effect had come from somewhere deeper, from inside the architecture of the vessel itself. As if the ship's true weapon was not a device mounted on the hull, but its relationship to reality. Then Strategic Command finally answered, not with a fired packet, with a person. The hologram that rose beside Zhurk's command cradle was stooped, pale, and very old by Dominion standards. Archivist Minister Talsuri. Keeper of sealed historical threat records. A civilian, which meant this was already above Fleet Command. Commander, Talsuri said, voice tight. You will transmit full combat telemetry at once. I already have. I know. I am watching it. The old minister's eyes fixed on the image of the resolute horizon, and Zhurk saw something astonishing there. Recognition. You know this vessel, Sharik said. Talsuri hesitated too long. Another class of problem. Explain. The minister looked away for a moment, as if listening to voices from very far off. When he spoke again, the tone had changed. Less bureaucrat, more witness. 211 cycles ago, before your hatching, a Concordium exploratory flotilla vanished near the Orion dead lanes. No debris, no survivors. The official ruling blamed fold collapse. He swallowed. The classified ruling did not. Sharik felt the bridge around him grow quieter as nearby officers listened. What did it say? Talsuri answered in a whisper. It said the flotilla encountered a human vessel and fired first. The words seemed to drain the air from the room. That is impossible, Zhurk said. No. Merely buried. The minister began speaking quickly now, like someone breaking a vow he had long regretted. Humanity, he said, had been surveyed much earlier than public records admitted, long before their diplomats entered the Concordium, long before they were mocked as provincial upstarts. Observers had noticed impossible patterns around human space. Missing pirates, dead invasion probes, regions where rival empires sent scout groups and received no return signals. Nothing provable, nothing admissible in council chambers, but enough to inspire secret caution. So the major powers had made a choice. They downgraded humanity in the official hierarchy, laughed at them, excluded them from core transit governance, let the galaxy think them harmless, because admitting uncertainty would have destabilized the Concordium's balance. Trade blocs depended on prestige. Vassal species obeyed, because they believed the great powers knew where the ceiling of force truly lay. If a small, abrasive, politically fractured species from a distant arm might possess something beyond that ceiling, the whole order could tremble. You hid this, Zhurk said. Stunned, all of you. Talsuri's gaze hardened. We contained panic. We expected them to remain isolated. On screen, the human ship powered its engines, not to flee, but to rotate slowly until its bow-faced Admiral Kelveth's flagship. The motion was deliberate, intimate, like a predator finally deciding which target mattered. A fresh transmission broke across all channels. Not from the humans. From outside the battle, a diplomatic priority burst bearing the sigils of the Cerevian Continuum, the vast hegemony, and the Concordium Central Assembly all at once. 3 rival powers, unified, just for this. That alone was enough to freeze every bridge in the corridor. The message was routed directly to Admiral Kelveth. But fleet-wide duplication let Zhurk hear every word. A Concordium speaker emerged in light, ceremonial mantle, trembling. "Admiral Kelveth," she said, "you are ordered to disengage immediately. Do not provoke further hostilities. This directive supersedes all Dominion authority under Article 9 emergency concurrence." Kelveth's face twisted with disbelief. "Article 9? Against one ship?" The speaker's next words fell like iron. "Against one mistake." Kelveth rose from his throne, enraged now beyond caution. "The Thalir Dominion does not yield sovereign corridors to trespassers and cowards. If the Assembly wishes to abase itself before primitives, let history spit on your names." He cut the channel before anyone could answer. Then he turned to his fleet and gave the order that would damn them all. "Charge the Annihilation Lances." On the radiant mandate, every instinct in Jaruk screamed at him to object, to mutiny, to run. But before he could speak, a new signal appeared inside the human ship's transmission envelope. A second voice, older than Captain Ward's, colder, and carrying authority so absolute that even translation engines seemed to hesitate before rendering it. "Dominion Fleet," the voice said. "This is Earth's Strategic Vessel Command. You have now fired on a protected transit bearer under accords you were never meant to need." Jaruk stared at the display. Protected transit bearer. Accords? Never meant to need. The unknown voice continued, and the corridor itself seemed to darken around the words. "Stand down, or we open the archives of war." Then, for the first time, something began to unfold from the Resolute Horizon's hull. Vast, geometric, and utterly impossible. And Admiral Kelveth, mad with pride, ordered the fleet to fire. The Dominion fleet fired. 62 warships unleashed their heaviest weapons in perfect, disciplined sync. For a moment, the Veltharan corridor became a storm of annihilation lances of gravitational collapse. Antimatter torpedoes, phased particle beams, and kinetic slugs accelerated 2 fractions of light speed. It was the kind of strike designed to erase continents. Even if the human ship possessed unknown defenses, nothing should have survived that much force arriving simultaneously from every direction. Commander Sarek watched the tactical display in silence. He had served 32 combat cycles in the Dominion Navy. He had fought pirates, insurgent coalitions, even border skirmishes with the brutal Vask hegemony. He knew what victory looked like, but deep in his instincts, something whispered that this was not it. The weapons reached the human vessel, and the universe hesitated. Not metaphorically. Actually hesitated. Every sensor aboard the Radiant Mandate flickered as space-time metrics briefly lost coherence. The navigation lattice, which relied on perfectly measured gravitational gradients, produced readings that contradicted each other across multiple dimensions. The barrage struck and flowed harmlessly around the Resolute Horizon like water around a stone. Not blocked, not deflected, simply denied. Jarek felt his throat tighten. "That's not shielding." His sensor officer whispered. "No," Jarek said slowly. "It isn't. Because shields interacted with energy. This field interacted with reality itself. The human ship was no longer entirely present in the same reference frame as the fleet attacking it. Across the tactical display, the impossible geometry unfolding from the human hull continued to expand. 6 immense structures slid outward from hidden cavities along the vessel's spine-perfect black prisms. Longer than the ship itself, they rotated slowly, locking into alignment around the core hull like the petals of some vast mechanical flower. Sensor alarms escalated into full panic. "Mass readings are Commander, those structures are distorting gravitational vectors. How can something that small produce that field density?" Jarek stared as the readings stabilized. Then the realization came. "They're not producing it," he said quietly. "They're anchoring it." The bridge turned toward him. "Anchoring what?" someone asked. Jarek looked at the impossible geometry surrounding the human ship and felt the terrible answer forming. Something bigger. Across the fleet channel, Admiral Kelveth roared in frustration. Second volley. "Target the structures." Another barrage erupted from the Dominion fleet, but this time, the human ship moved first. The voice of Captain Elias Ward returned calmly across every channel. "You have ignored repeated warnings." There was no anger in his tone. "Only finality. We will now enforce Disengagement. The black prisms around the resolute horizon rotated into perfect alignment. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space bent, not dramatically, not violently, just. Yet that slight shift caused chaos across the Dominion fleet. Navigation systems screamed. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Several destroyers spun out of formation as their inertial dampeners fought impossible vectors. "What is happening?" Kelvith demanded. "Jarek." S-sensor. Officer answered in horror. "Commander." The corridor itself is changing. The Veltheran trade corridor had existed for centuries because it followed a natural fold space. Gradienton, invisible river through the galaxy where faster-than-light travel required minimal energy. But now, river was twisting. The human ship was rewriting the gravitational topology of the region. Ships began drifting, then sliding, then accelerating in unpredictable directions as the fundamental geometry of space shifted around them. "Helm, Jarek," barked. "Stabilize us." "I'm trying." The vectors keep changing. Another cruiser vanished from the display. Not from attack. From Collegia. Two Dominion destroyers slammed together after their trajectories bent suddenly toward each other. On the fleet channel, panic spread again. "We're losing control." Navigation collapse across sector. Engines, unresponsive. Admiral Kelvith tried to reassert command. "All ships." His words cut off abruptly, because the resolute horizon had activated its weapon again. One of the black prisms pulsed. A faint ripple spread outward. The Dominion battleship, glorious verdict, disappeared. Then the carrier Iron Decree, then 3 cruisers. In rapid succession, the tactical display looked like a constellation being erased one star at a time. Jarek realized something terrifying. The humans were not panicking. They were demonstrating control. Each removal was precise, measured, almost surgical, as if they were solving an equation. The communications officer whispered, "Commander, new transmission. From the humans." "No." "From Earth." Jarek turned sharply. The signal came from far beyond the corridor, relayed through fold space channels the Dominion had never detected before. A new hologram appeared in the center of the bridge. Not a soldier, not a politician. An elderly human woman wearing simple civilian clothing. Her voice carried quiet authority. "I am Dr. Amara Kessler, chair of the Terran Strategic Council." The bridge officers stared in stunned silence. The woman looked directly into the camera. "You have now witnessed the outermost capability of a Transit Guardian vessel." Jarek felt his blood chill. Transit Guardian. "That phrase again," Dr. Kessler continued. "Humanity did not build these ships for conquest." Her expression hardened slightly. "We built them because the galaxy once nearly ended." Across dozens of Dominion bridges, officers leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Jarek demanded. The woman's eyes met his through the transmission. "You think humanity is a young civilization?" "That is correct according to all Concordium records," Jarek said. She nodded slowly. "Yes, because that is when we returned." Silence fell like a physical weight. "Returned from where?" someone whispered. Dr. Kessler did not answer immediately. Instead, she said something else. 2,000 years ago, long before the Concordium existed, an intelligence emerged beyond the edge of known space. Her voice carried the tone of someone recalling a nightmare. It did not invade worlds. It did not negotiate. It simply unmade civilizations. Jarek felt dread spreading across the bridge. "And humanity stopped it?" he asked quietly. Dr. Kessler's eyes darkened. "No, we survived it." The Veltheran corridor shook as another Dominion warship vanished. Captain Ward's voice returned calmly. "Dominion vessels, you will power down your weapons. This engagement is now concluded." Admiral Kelvath refused. His flagship began charging its annihilation. Lancer, the most powerful weapon in the Dominion arsenal. Zurich closed his eyes briefly. "This is madness," he whispered. Dr. Kessler watched silently. Then she spoke one final sentence. A sentence that would echo across the galaxy. "Admiral, if you fire that weapon, you'll force humanity to reveal why we were chosen to guard the corridors of reality itself." Kelvath fired anyway, and in the next moment, the Resolute Horizon opened its true weapon system. The stars themselves seemed to recoil. The Annihilation lance fired. A beam of compressed singularity energy erupted from Admiral Kelvath's flagship, the Dominion Dreadnought Sovereign Edict. It was the most feared weapon in the Thaliros, engineered collapse of spacetime that could drill through planetary crusts and destabilize a moon. Across the Veltharan corridor, the beam tore forward like a spear of black lightning. Commander Sarek had seen this weapon used only once before. Nothing had survived it. But this time, the target was the Resolute Horizon, and the human ship did something no one expected. It did not evade. It did not shield. It simply allowed the beam to arrive. For half a second, the Annihilation lance touched the human vessel and stopped. Not because of a barrier. Not because of counterforce. The beam simply lost its destination. Sensors across every Dominion ship screamed simultaneously as the laws governing vector continuity collapsed around the point of contact. Jarek stared in disbelief. The beam still existed. The energy was still there, but the universe no longer recognized where it was supposed to go. The Annihilation lance unraveled like a knot, pulled apart by invisible fingers, its singularity core collapsing harmlessly into microscopic distortions that dissipated into vacuum. On the Dominion flagship bridge, Admiral Kelvath froze. His greatest weapon had just been rendered meaningless. Then the voice of Captain Elias Ward returned. But now, the calm tone carried a hint of sorrow. "You were warned." The 6 black prisms around the Resolute Horizon flared with pale light. Not energy. Something deeper. Space bent inward between them, forming a perfect sphere of distortion around the human vessel. The stars behind it twisted into impossible angles, as though the galaxy itself had become a reflection on curved glass. "Jarek's answer?" Officer gasped. "Commander. Commander. Commander. We're detecting higher dimensional topology inside that field." "What does that mean?" "It means," the officer hesitated, struggling to find the words. "It means the human ship is no longer limited to 3 spatial axes." A murmur of horror spread across the bridge. The black prisms rotated again. Their alignment shifted with mathematical precision, locking into a new geometric configuration. Then the true weapon activated. It did not look like a weapon. There was no flash, no beam, no explosion. Instead, the Dominion fleet experienced something far more terrifying. History changed. One moment, the fleet had 62 ships. The next moment, there were 47. 15 vessels vanished simultaneously. Not gradually, not sequentially. Gone, and the sensor logs changed with them. Jarek stared at the display in stunned silence. The ships were not just missing. Their previous positions were empty. Their movement records were gone. It was as if those vessels had never entered the battle at all. What did they do? Someone whispered. Jarek felt cold dread settle in his chest. "They removed them from the timeline." Across the fleet channel, chaos erupted. Ships missing from formation. Historical data corrupted. My tactical display just rewrote itself. Admiral Kelvath shouted orders. But even his flagship systems were struggling to process what had happened. Another pulse rippled outward from the prisms. 7 more ships disappeared. And again, their existence was erased from the battle record. Now only 39 Dominion vessels remained, Dr. Amara Kessler. S transmission returned, her face illuminated by the eerie distortion field surrounding the human warship. "This is what happens when you weaponize causality," she said quietly. Jarek stared at her. "You're editing reality." "No," she corrected. "We're correcting it." The bridge fell silent. Dr. Kessler folded her hands. "The technology you are witnessing is called a chronometric displacement engine. It was created during humanity's first war with the entity we call the Silent Cataclysm. Jurek remembered her earlier words. 2,000 years ago, a war no one in the Concordium remembered. Why has no one heard of this war? He asked. Dr. Kessler's eyes darkened, because most of the civilizations who fought it no longer exist. The corridor trembled again. Another Dominion cruiser vanished. The remaining fleet attempted to retreat, engines flaring, as ships tried desperately to escape the expanding distortion field. But space itself refused to cooperate. Every escape vector curved back toward the human vessel. Captain Ward's voice echoed across the battlefield. Do not attempt to withdraw. You are inside a controlled temporal corridor. Jerikas. Heart pounded. You're trapping us in time. Ward responded calmly. No, Commander. We're preventing further damage to history. On the Dominion flagship, Admiral Kelvoth's fury finally broke into desperation. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. But, Admiral, that's an order. The remaining 38 ships opened fire again. Another storm of weapons converged on the Resolute horizon. This time, the human ship did not evade. The distortion sphere expanded suddenly, and the weapons simply never existed. Missiles vanished mid-flight. Energy beams flickered out of history before reaching their target. The Dominion fleet stared in horror as their own attacks disappeared from reality. Dr. Kessler spoke softly. Once a chronometric engine establishes dominance over a local time domain, conventional weapons become irrelevant. Jurek whispered. You control cause and effect. Yes. Another ripple passed through the corridor. 5 more Dominion ships disappeared. Only 33 remained. Admiral Kelvath's voice came again, but now it carried something Jurek had never heard before. Fear. What are you? Captain Ward answered. Human. Kelvath snarled. No species can wield power like this. Ward paused, then spoke the words that changed everything. We didn't build this technology. The Dominion bridges fell silent. Dr. Kessler closed her eyes briefly before continuing. Humanity discovered the ruins of a civilization older than any currently known. They had already fought the Silent Cataclysm, and lost. Sharik felt the enormity of the revelations settling over the battlefield. You inherited their weapons, he said. Dr. Kessler nodded slowly. And their responsibility. The Resolute horizon rotated slightly, its prisms realigning for another temporal correction. Captain Ward spoke again. Dominion fleet, stand down. This is your final warning. Admiral Kelvoth looked at the tactical display. 33 ships remained. His pride would not allow surrender. Fire everything, he whispered. The order went out, but this time the human ship responded differently. The black prisms began unfolding further, far beyond their previous configuration. The distortion sphere expanded until it engulfed the entire corridor. Stars vanished from view. Reality trembled. Jurek realized with dawning horror what was happening. This isn't just a weapon, he said. It's a containment protocol. Dr. Kessler nodded gravely. Yes. Jorika's voice dropped to a whisper. What are you containing? Dr. Kessler answered with a single sentence. The thing that almost destroyed the galaxy. At that exact moment, the Resolute horizon opened the sealed archive of the ancient war, and every Dominion ship saw the truth. The stars went out. Not destroyed. Not hidden by a weapon field. They simply vanished from the sky around the Veltheran corridor, as though the galaxy itself had stepped backward. For a moment, every Dominion vessel floated in a darkness so absolute that even sensor arrays struggled to define distance. Navigation grids collapsed into meaningless numbers. Artificial gravity hummed uncertainly as inertial anchors lost reference to the universe they had been designed to measure. Commander Jurek gripped the command cradle. What have they done? Across the bridge, the tactical display had transformed. The battlefield map was gone, replaced by a vast projection of shifting light and immense three-dimensional lattice of timelines branching and intersecting like the veins of a living organism. At the center of that lattice hovered the human vessel Resolute Horizon, and surrounding it, Something far larger. Dr. Amara Kessler's voice returned across every ship in the corridor. This is a controlled temporal reconstruction. What you are seeing is not a simulation. Her tone carried a weight of history. It is a preserved record of the last war fought in this region of space. The lattice brightened, and the darkness filled with ghosts. Ships appeared, thousands of them. Vessels unlike anything the Dominion had ever seen, sleek crystalline warforms. Massive living constructs grown from biometal, towering geometries that bent light around their hulls. Entire armadas belonging to species no archive of the Concordium had ever mentioned. Sharik stared in stunned silence. This can't be real. But the sensor logs confirmed it. These were not illusions. They were temporal echoes reconstructed from actual historical states of the universe. Dr. Kessler continued, 2,117 years ago. This region was the center of a civilization known as the Ithilian Collective. The Ghost Fleet drifted slowly across the projection. They were older than any currently active power in the galaxy. Another group of ships appeared, alien vessels that looked like immense fractal spirals. Their surfaces shifting like liquid mathematics. They discovered something beyond the edge of mapped space. The lattice shuddered. Then the ghosts of war erupted. One moment, the Ithian fleets held formation. The next, space itself tore open. From the rupture emerged shapes that defied comprehension. Not ships. Not creatures. Vast distortions that swallowed stars like insects, caught in gravity wells. Every Dominion officer felt instinctive terror just looking at them. Jarix's voice came out hoarse. That's the silent cataclysm. Dr. Kessler nodded. Yes, the ghosts of battle unfolded with horrifying clarity. Entire Ithilian fleets opened fire with weapons that dwarfed anything in modern arsenal stellar collapse cannons. Probability shredders, dimensional torpedoes. None of it mattered. The cataclysm did not attack ships. It attacked existence. Where the distortions passed, reality unraveled. Planets vanished. Fleets dissolved into fragments of uncaused matter. Entire timelines collapsed into paradox and silence. Jarek watched, one ancient armada simply stop existing. The archive showed the moment perfectly. One frame, 1,000 ships. The next frame, empty space. Dr. Kessler spoke quietly. The cataclysm was not a species. It was a phenomenon. Predatory intelligence that feeds on the structure of reality itself. The projection shifted. The Ithilian Collective began building something enormous around their surviving world's vast rings of machinery stretching across entire solar systems. The chronometric engines, Sharik whispered. Yes, Kessler said. They discovered the only way to fight something that erases existence is to control time itself. The ancient war escalated. The Ithilian fleets began using the same weapons. The Resolute Horizon now wielded temporal displacement, causality editing, timeline severance. For a brief moment they held the cataclysm at bay. But the projection showed the inevitable truth. The phenomenon was too vast, too patient, too alien. The Ithilian civilization collapsed sector by sector, and then the archive reached its final moment. A Lone Star system appeared at the edge of the map. Primitive, unremarkable. A small yellow star surrounded by rocky worlds. Sharik leaned forward. Earth. Dr. Kessler nodded slowly. The last surviving Ithian guardians found humanity by accident. The projection showed ancient ships descending toward a young Earth long before the Concordium existed, before interstellar travel, before human civilization had even left its homeworld. They studied us, Kessler said. They saw something unusual. What? Jarek asked. Adaptation. The projection zoomed in on humanity's early history war. Collapse, rebuilding, technological leaps, born from desperate necessity. The Ithilian realized their civilization would not survive the cataclysm. They needed a successor. Across the Dominion bridges, officers listened in stunned silence. So they chose humanity, Jarek said. Yes. The archive showed the final act of the dying civilization, the last Ethilian chronometric core buried beneath the crust of a distant asteroid in the Orion Spur. A seed. Waiting. They left us their technology, Kessler said, and a message. The projection displayed the final recorded transmission of the Ethelian Guardians. Their language translated automatically into Concordium Standard. To whoever finds this, we could not defeat the devourer of timelines, but perhaps you can learn to contain it. Guard the corridors of reality, and when the darkness returns, be stronger than we were. The archive ended. The stars of the Veltharan corridor slowly returned. Dominion officers sat in stunned silence. Admiral Kelvath's voice finally broke through the quiet. You expect us to believe this story? Captain Ward answered. You already do. Kelvath hesitated, because the Dominion fleet had just watched the human ship wield the exact weapons shown in the ancient archive. Sharik spoke quietly. And the cataclysm. Dr. Kessler's expression grew grave. We never destroyed it. Then where is it? Jurek asked. The answer came from Captain Ward. Contained. The black prisms around the resolute horizon began to glow again. Ward continued. Our ships are not only weapons, they're also prisons. Jarek felt cold dread spreading through the bridge. You mean... Ward finished the sentence. The chronometric engine inside this vessel is currently holding a fragment of the silent cataclysm outside normal time. Across the corridor, every Dominion ship went silent, because that meant the impossible. The most dangerous entity in the galaxy was currently locked inside the human warship they had just attacked. Admiral Kelvath's voice came out as a whisper. You brought it here. Ward replied calmly. No. It followed us. The distortion field around the resolute horizon suddenly flickered. Sensor alarms screamed, the chronometric, containment lattice, and something ancient began to push against the walls of time itself. Captain Ward's final words echoed across the corridor. All ships prepare for emergency temporal evacuation, because, if the prison fails, the war that erased the Ethelian collective begins again. The alarms did not sound like weapons warnings. They sounded like clocks breaking. Across the Dominion fleet, navigation systems howled as chronometers timestamps jumped backward, forward, then split into contradictory readings. Some consoles reported events that had not happened yet. Others replayed the last few seconds repeatedly, like a memory caught in a loop. Commander. Sarek gripped the command cradle as the radiant mandate shuddered violently. Report. The sensor officer's voice shook. Temporal shear, increasing. Something inside the human vessel is pushing against the containment lattice. Across the tactical display, the resolute horizon had become a storm of bending geometry. The 6 black prisms surrounding the ship pulsed erratically, their precise alignment beginning to drift as gravitational and temporal vectors fought each other. Captain Elias Ward's voice remained calm. All Dominion vessels, cut your engines and power down weapon systems immediately. Your reactors are interfering with the containment field. Admiral Kelvath did not argue this time. His voice came over the fleet channel, stripped of its former arrogance. All ships comply. Within seconds, the remaining Dominion vessels shut down their primary drives. Weapons powered down. Even shield grids dimmed as crews realized that their survival now depended entirely on the human warship they had attacked minutes earlier. Jarek watched the resolute horizon carefully. The vessel that had erased fleets and rewritten timelines now looked fragile. Not weak, but strained. The black prisms rotated constantly, trying to maintain their geometric lock. Each time they slipped out of alignment, a ripple passed through space, and the stars warped again. Dr. Amara Kessler-Sue's voice returned across the channel. Captain Ward, status. Ward replied without hesitation. Containment stability at 34%. Silence followed. Even the Dominion officers understood what that meant. The prison was failing. Sharek spoke quietly. What happens if it breaks? Doctor! Kessler answered. The fragment of the cataclysm currently trapped inside the engine will re-enter normal space. And then... She did not soften the truth. then everything within several star systems will cease to exist. The bridge of the Radiant Mandate went silent. Outside the viewport, the human vessel burned with pale light as its impossible technology fought to hold the prison together. Zurich felt something shift inside him. Only minutes earlier he had watched humans as enemies. Now he realized they had been fighting a war the galaxy had forgotten. He opened a channel to Captain Ward, Human Commander. "Is there anything we can do?" Ward hesitated for the first time. "Possibly." Zurich leaned forward. "Tell us." Ward's voice carried reluctant respect. "Our chronometric engine requires stable gravitational anchors to maintain containment. Normally, a transit guardian operates alone to avoid interference. But right now, the prisms shuddered violently again. A crack of white light tore briefly across space before sealing itself. Ward finished the sentence. "Right now we need mass." Zurich understood immediately. "You want the fleet to anchor the corridor?" "Correct." Dr. Kessler added quietly. "It's extremely dangerous. If the cataclysm breaches containment, the closest mass concentrations will be consumed first." The implication hung in the air. The Dominion fleet. Kelvath's ships. Zurich looked around the bridge. His crew understood. Some looked terrified. Others strangely calm, because suddenly the situation was very simple. Either they ran and doomed entire sectors of the galaxy, or they stayed and helped hold the prison closed. Zurich opened the fleet channel. "Admiral Covey." The Admiral answered slowly. "Yes, Commander. We attacked them." Kelvath did not respond. Zurich continued. "They warned us. We ignored them." Still silence. Zurich took a breath. Now they're asking for help. On the projection screen, the Resolute Horizon struggled to maintain its containment field as the prisms burned brighter. Kelvath's voice returned. And it sounded older. "All Dominion vessels repositioned to gravitational anchor formation." Gasps filled several bridges. Kelvath continued. "We will assist the humans." The surviving 33 Dominion ships began moving into position around the human vessel. Not as attackers, as supports. Zurich watched the formation take shape. For the first time in centuries, Dominion warships followed the command of a foreign captain. Ward's voice came across the channel again. "All ships maintain constant thrust stabilization. Match the vectors we transmit exactly." Zurich obeyed, without hesitation. The Radiant Mandate aligned its drives with the coordinates provided by the human vessel. Across the corridor, dozens of ships formed a massive gravitational lattice around the Resolute Horizon. Slowly, the distortion field stabilized. The black prisms regained their perfect geometric alignment. Sensor readings began to normalize. Containment rose from 34% to 50. Then 68. "Onto bridge, someone exhaled shakily. "We're holding it." Zurich watched the human vessel carefully. Captain Ward spoke again. Containment restored. A wave of relief swept through the fleet, but Ward was not finished. However, Zurich felt his stomach tighten. The cataclysm fragment has now adapted to the chronometric engine. Dr. Kessler closed her eyes briefly. "What does that mean?" Zurich asked. Ward answered quietly. "It means the prison will not hold forever." The corridor fell silent again. After a moment, Zurich asked the question everyone feared. "What happens when it escapes?" Ward did not hesitate. "Then humanity will do what the Ethelian could not." Zurich waited. Ward finished the sentence. "We will destroy it." Admiral Kelvath spoke slowly. "You believe your species can defeat something that erased an ancient civilization?" Ward's answer carried quiet certainty. "Yes." Kelvath stared at the human vessel glowing at the center of the formation. Then he said something that would echo through the Dominion for centuries. "Perhaps we underestimated your species." Dr. Kessler allowed herself a faint smile. Everyone did. Outside the viewport, the stars returned fully to normal. The Veltheran corridor stabilized. For the moment, the war that had once nearly erased the galaxy remained contained. Jarek looked at the resolute horizon, the lone human warship that had erased fleets, rewritten time, and quietly held back a cosmic nightmare for centuries. He realized something profound. Humanity had never tried to dominate the galaxy. They had been guarding it, and somewhere beyond the edges of mapped space, the rest of the silent cataclysm was still waiting. Captain Ward's final message spread across the fleet. Dominion vessels, thank you for assisting containment. Now you understand why humanity travels alone, and why we prefer the galaxy to think we are weak. The transmission ended. The resolute horizon powered its engines. Fold space opened, and the human ship vanished into the darkness between stars returning to a war most civilizations did not even know existed. Commander Sarek watched the empty space where it had been. For the first time in his life, he understood the true scale of the universe. Empires fought for territory. Trade blocs fought for profit. But somewhere out there, humanity fought for reality itself, and they had been doing it alone.